myself. So my name is Lesa Smith. I teach at Ozarks Christian Academy in West Plains, Missouri. I teach kindergarten, and this is my friend
Angela Littlejohn.
Mm-hmm.
I teach upper school, so I actually teach 7th grade. I've taught everything between and all of them, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, writing. And we have implemented the Progym in the last few years, so you've probably been hearing. How many of you were at Becky Zeller's talk just before lunch on literacy strategies? So she's our 6th grade teacher, and what's really, really exciting for us about what Lisa's doing is she's taking things and ideas from the Progym, and Becky's doing things at the Fable narrative, and she's 6, so the Crayon Maxim level. And what Lesa has done over the last couple of years to take those ideas and start in kindergarten, where she's building foundation for us that by the time they get to Fable, and I won't tell her talk, but anyway, it's really exciting. So if you were in that, and that's why she asked me to come, so that throughout the talk, I'll just interject of how this is prepping kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd graders for things they're even going to do up in the logic and the rhetoric when they get up into the writing that we're doing up at that stage. So that's why I'm here.
That was great. Okay. So glad she's here with me. I can try. You are welcome. Thank you for letting me know, though, because I never know if it's loud enough or not.
It's over here. It's not all your fault.
The freezer makes noise periodically.
Oh, does it? Okay. Well, I'll just try really hard to talk loud. Okay. So what I'd like to do today is just kind of show you some examples of ways to give students early exposure to the way to organize their thoughts and to evaluate literature so that they can talk about their ideas and the feelings that they have when they hear a book. I don't know about you, but when I read, or a couple of years ago when I started doing classical Christian education, I would read a book, and really the whole time I taught, but I would read a book and I would say, so what did you like about the book? It was nice. Yes. Or it was funny, and it is those things, and I want them to enjoy it, but I thought literature is so amazing, and while I don't want to test them over it, I do want them to learn to love it and pick out those things that make it special. So I'm just going to start and show you kind of what I do. So at the beginning of the school year, I will talk about characters, and that's all basically. We'll read a story, and I'll put some pictures up. I'll read the story the first day, and we just read to love it, just to think it's great and funny. And I might talk about the characters as I go through, and we might look at the illustrations. But the second day that I read it, I'll say, today when we read, all we want to think about is Little Red Riding Hood. What do you notice about her? What does she look like? What kind of things does she say? Does she mind her mom? Does she not? Is she obedient? What are we going to find out about Little Red Riding Hood? And as you can see, they'll give me some ideas. Now, at the beginning of the year, I might have to help them along a little bit. But as the year goes on, they come up with even better ideas than I do. Then we'll go to Granny. I'll read it again. I'll talk about Granny. They'll give me some ideas. Then we'll talk about the wolf one day, because it's 5 days. Then we'll talk about the hunter. And as they start looking at these, I'll say, why do you think there are more words to describe Little Red Riding Hood than, say, the hunter? Why do you think that is? Well, they'll tell me, well, that's because she's more important than the wolf or the hunter. And I'll say, well, what makes you think that? Well, she's on every page, the story's about her. So they're already starting to figure out that some characters you're going to learn more about, and that's probably because they're the main character. We haven't talked about that yet, but that's where I'm trying to get them to go. Now, I also will call these not just characters, but I switch agents back and forth, because the Progym, that's what they're called in the Progym, are agents. And then from talking about the characters, a few weeks later, I'll start talking about the setting and how the setting helps make the story more interesting. Can the setting change? When the setting changes, does it change what happens in the story? Over here, this is one that happened later. This was later in the school year last year. So we were reading Charlotte's Web, and we had already done several of the little maps. And I would say, well, today we're just going to draw the only thing we know about the story. So they drew the arable farm. And then when she sold Wilbur to the Zuckermans, I said, should we add that to our map? Because is that changing the setting? Yes, it is. So then they would draw their little, whatever they wanted it to look like, their little barn. And then you can see this little guy has footprints. See, he's going down here. There's the pig pen and all the little characters. Well, then he's got all the cars coming to see the web. Then later on, you know, when they go to the fair, I say, oh, today in chapter 8 or whatever chapter it's in, they're going to go to the fair. So before we do this, we read the chapter and I give them time to talk to a partner. What's at the fair? What's the fair look like? And that's developing not only their ability to have conversations with each other, but their vocabulary. And so they talk about it, then they draw the fair, and then you can see that later, as we get toward the end of the book, he's got footprints, they're going back, and then here's her 3 babies right here. So they get more detailed as time goes on, but I think this is important too, because sometimes I don't think they realize that the story does change. They do go other places, and so they start getting excited when they get to add to this. But anyway, so I do that, and then as time goes on, I start doing these story maps, and this one was one of the first ones that I did. And has anybody in here ever read The Lonely Scarecrow by any chance? It's a really cute book. This time of year in the fall, we start visiting the nursing home. And so we read this book, and I draw pictures and they color them. And then we try to figure out, where would your picture go? Would it go at the beginning? Would it go in the middle? Or would it go in the end? That happened at the end of your story. And so they discuss, they sit around this and we discuss, you know, where would it go? And everybody has to agree. We might have to do a story walkthrough. And so we did this. Now this was the first step into doing one by themselves with pictures. And what I like about this is that if you've got a child that's struggling with writing, you know, words or whatever, it's in kindergarten, they're all going to struggle because they don't know yet. But if they're a little bit older, they can draw a stick person. And I try to emphasize, I draw these so we know what it is, but when you get ready to do yours, it doesn't have to look like that. So when I do them on the board and they're not already drawn out, I purposely kind of do it a little bit sloppy, you know, because I want them to know it's okay if it's not perfect. I just want to know if you can retell me the story. So after we get this done, to work on summarization and just story retell, I'll say, and sequence, I'll say, can anybody come up and point to this and tell us the story of the Lonely Scarecrow? And they can come up, not all of them, because this is in the fall again. They'll come up and point and talk about what happened in the story. So to take the story and make it apply more to them, we did a Venn diagram. And this is one of the first ones that we just kind of did together on the floor, because we had been talking about we were going to go to the nursing home. They don't look like we look. They kind of look like me because I'm older, but they don't look like children. And they're going to be different, and some of them, because in the stories you can see the scarecrow kind of looks scary at the beginning with his teeth and everything. But he didn't have any friends, and that's why he was lonely. Everybody was scared of him. So anyway, we did a Venn diagram before we went to the nursing home. And I was amazed at how when we compared them, they said that the scarecrow was nice. He wasn't real. He had an ugly face, a scary smile. He can't move. He had no food. And the animals, let's see, he had animals as friends. And then over here, they said that the elderly at the nursing home had friendly smiles. They were old, they were real, they were nice, they were wrinkled. They can eat, they move slow, they might have walkers or wheelchairs, they're friendly, they have kind actions, and they have people as friends. Well, then we talked about how they might be alike, which I thought was really interesting. They said they're probably lonely, they're loving, they have kind hearts, they're marooned, because in this book, that's one of the words in here. They're marooned, and they want friends. And so, you know, I tried to tie this story with the Venn diagram, and then when we went to the nursing home, and you can attest to that, she went with me, and they weren't scared. Not that they would have been extremely frightened, but it was new, and some of them didn't really know elderly people. So by exploring this piece of literature and then comparing them to something in their life, we were able to you know, work through some of those questions and what they might see there. Now, I told you I'd get out of order, so here I go. Before I did this, it was fall, and we were talking about what happens in the fall and what might be harvested. So this was one of the first connecting sentences that we did. And I read a book about pumpkins. I talked to him about riddles, which are just pictures of things that are just too hard for them to spell at that moment. So I drew some pumpkins. This is, of course, the title. And then the green one means we're going to come up with our main idea. We're going to talk about how many parts they have. And so the way that when I do this, I'll read a book, and then they'll give me words. I'll say, raise your hand if you can tell me a word that you heard in this pumpkin book that makes you think of pumpkins. So they'll raise their hand, and these are the words they came up with. Okay? And so then we pick this, I hang this up, and we pick this out. They have many parts. So which one of these words do we need to get rid of that's not a part? So, if it's not a part, like the patch. So they'd say, take patch off. And I'd say, okay. And then we'd go through and I say, you say. And they'd say, oh, get rid of that one. That one won't work. And so then we have several left. And they get to decide, we'll read this, they have, and they'll put the part. And then they have, and they put the part. And then our closing, which is always on red, God made pumpkins perfect. So that was our first attempt at trying to make some connecting sentences. And then over here, let's see, this is, we've started, here's the pig, here's the pig, and the spider, or my spider lost his legs in the move. But anyway, so they came up with these. They are interesting. They spin webs, and then they came up with one more, and then spiders are cool. And then over here, before we started Charlotte's Web, we did the spider, and we did the pig. And so I tried to draw some pictures to go with these so that they could kind of figure it out while they looked at it. And this was our chart that we started out with. And so over here, I have samples from the spiders and from the pigs. And you're welcome to look at these at any time. But like this one, this little boy said, pigs eat many things. They eat fruit. They also eat roots. Pigs are big eaters. So that's his. And then one for the spider. This is the same child, actually. Let me see if I can. Oh, here's one. Spiders. They are interesting. They spin webs. They help us. Spiders are cool. And so they're able to read these back to me. Now, this scaffolding part, I'll do that probably till the end of the year. It's just too much. Some of them won't need me to, and if they don't need me to, I'll say, go ahead, do it on your own. But most of the time, they're going to need some scaffolding. So, is there any questions so far about any of this? Yes, please. Please feel free.
Here are a couple of things while she gets ready to go to her next section that you know this, but here's what's so incredibly exciting. When you hit fable, in the narrative phase, they're learning how to paraphrase, story, and that sort of thing. What's really neat is if the kindergarten, the 1st to 2nd grade teacher are gradually moving them through something like this, then as a 4th or 5th grade teacher, you can say, remember when you drew the pictures of the beginning, middle, end? Here's what it looks like when we outline it. You know what I mean? And you already, as far as your thread and your alignment and the instructions flowing from one grade to another, you can go right back to that. And then what they start to do in fable and narrative is resequencing, where it's like, okay, now we're going to start in the middle, we're going to go to the end. How do we get back to the beginning? But if they have this that they've been doing in those other grades, you're already set. And when she uses words like agent for their characters and she's using the vocabulary for us, then we step in at 4th grade and we don't have to spend a whole lot of time teaching the vocabulary. They already know it. And when she's asking them about things that they can you think of, or can you does it make you think of something in your life? Does it remind you of something? She's already prepping them for when we say the recognition in the story is what you know about it. So she's completely priming them for us to just take it seamlessly and go from there forward. So that's exciting. The Venn diagrams, I was thinking about that, the refutation confirmation, when they start to have to discover arguments. on both sides. Well, that's Venn diagram kind of work. It's what's over here, how are they different, how are they alike. So it's just so exciting because you can fall back then and they have somewhere that it connects for them and you can just go forward with it. So I didn't mean to get right in front of you. How about
No,
that?
it's fine. I think you had a...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to stop you every 10 seconds, I promise.
Well, it hasn't been 10 seconds. It's been a lot longer, but go ahead.
I've only done this for 6 months, less really, and so I don't know jargon.
Mhm.
So I chose this one instead of the one that explains really what progym is, which is a term I've never heard of. So can you give me like a definition?
There you go.
Yes. So the difference, so Progym, we implemented it about 2 years ago, and I will give you this in a little nutshell since you came to this one to hear, Lesa, not that one. It is an ancient model of teaching writing and rhetoric. So when you read the New Testament and you're like, Paul, why? You said it 6 times already. Why are you saying it again? Our students this year in Refutation and Confirmation are like, oh, because you asked it as a rhetorical question and then you paraphrase it as a statement. So it was just a classical model of writing and speaking. And what happened is, not to knock John Dewey, but we moved away from, and we probably were taught a process writing model. And everyone, we need to know how to write paragraphs, but we are having such really great things happening with our students. Going back and incorporating that with what we're doing. So that's what that is. And I'll try not to throw too much of that in. It's just really exciting how Lesa's taking a lot of things that work in process model or Progym, but for us, she's really preparing our students now for what they're coming to. So
Is that helpful?
that helps.
Good. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is sequencing. Things I do to help them remember sequence, because in this part of the story map, that's what I'm working on. So when I get to the middle, because the first few times, we're working on the beginning, we talk about it, then we'll add the middle. And I'll tell them, we just need to remember how the things happened in the story, which is really hard for some of them. So I make these, here they are, I make these flip books, and they look like this. So you should have some paper in the middle of your table. You need 3 pieces of paper, and we're going to make one. I'll show you how to do it. Do we have any extra paper over here, maybe?
There, I left for you
Oh,
to show
thank
them.
you.
There's even 3.
Aha. Okay. Let me know if you don't have enough paper, because you need 3 pieces. Has anyone ever made these before? Because I just found this one. This isn't something I made up. This is somebody else's great idea. Okay, so you're going to layer them. You're going to put this one here, then move this one down just a little, and then the next one goes a little farther down. So it's going to be like this. And then you want these to show with these. So you're going to take it and fold it down like this. So all those little edges are going to show. And if you need help, raise your hand, and I'll come help you. How many inches?
How far do you want it to
Oh, just a little ways. It's just where the little things stay. It's not real. Yeah, perfect. You can even use this in PE. And then you should have a stapler, and then just put 2 staples at the very top where the fold is. What did I do with it? This right here. I found it. I just didn't know what I did with it. Okay. So this is one that I cut in half. As you can see, I just made it skinny. And actually it was because I was tired and didn't want to. It was double for your money. But anyway, we read the Gingerbread Man. And so we were talking about, the order in which the story happened. So I drew these little pictures, and we just glued them in place. They talked about it. So when we got done, isn't that coloring beautiful? So when we got done putting them in order, I put the little rhyme on the back, and they took these, and I don't know up here, this isn't flip books, but this is what we do. We do partner share. And the way I keep it from being real chaotic is that when they get ready to partner, because, you know, some kids just want to go to that same kid all the time, and they'll be like 7 wanting to read with this one or retell with that one. So can I borrow you? Hold your hand up. So this means this person's taken. Their hands are together. They're partners for right now. And so she and I would go through this. We'd retell the story of the Gingerbread Man. And then when we're done, I'd say, great job. And we put our hands down. And then I'd go over here and touch this hand. And they know that person's off limits for right now. They've got a partner. And so that's how we use this. And so then when I go to do this with them on the last day, this part's not hard because we've talked about those characters. We've talked about the agents. We talked about the setting. We've been working on that since the beginning of the school year. So now I'm ready to try to see if they can do this with me. So these are glued, but in a minute we're all going to do one together. And I just put little dots, and they are going to draw a picture beside it. So now they know. Well, I know what to do. And if I can't remember, where can I go look? Oh yeah, my flip book. I've got my flip book. So they go get the flip book and they put the dots and we fill it in. And for a long time, we do it together. I'll say, who can tell me what happened? Who chased them first? Well, and we'll go down. And then over here, we'll get to that at the end. Right now, I'm just wanting to know that they know characters or agents. They know the setting, and they know the sequence of the middle of the story. Okay? So, I want you to think for a minute. I know that this can be used for other things. This is our PE teacher over here, and I was just telling her, you could even use this, because there's rules for certain games, or rules for how you want them to put equipment up, or whatever. They could draw it. They could write it if they're older. You could do a science experiment with this. You could even obviously do a story, but you could even just do a character. Like if you're in the upper grades, you said you're 8th grade. Is that right, back here? Are you 8th grade now? What grade are you?
Pre-K. I'm pre-K.
Oh, well, no, you're not 8th grade, but you can still use these. But anyway, I thought I heard 8th grade. But you could take characters from a book, or even a chapter at a time from a chapter book, and you don't have to use 3 pages. Where there's this many. If you teach younger ones, you could use less. Also, this is helpful when you've got that student that cannot write a lot of the words, but they can tell you the story. And so this is a way for them to get pictures down, and then when you have them come up and you want them to summarize, they can be successful. They can get this book and they can tell the story, and they sound just like everybody else. They know the story. And the same with over here. When they get ready to do this, and we've done several of these and we've talked about it, they know where to go if they can't remember. They've got that flip book. So this has been really helpful. I've done several of these, like when we built scarecrows, when we were doing our Lonely Scarecrow. How do you build a scarecrow? And they would draw pictures. What do you do first? Like that. But anyway, we like these in my room. I hope you'll like them. Can anybody think of something you could use it for in your classroom? Like you could even do letter sounds. Say the letter of the next 4 days is, let's say it's G. And so on each flap, you would put the G here, and then on each flap, they draw a picture of something that begins with that sound. Or you could do vowels. Maybe you want to do the short vowels. This is the short A vowel flip book. Short A, can you draw me some pictures of things that you hear the short A sound in? So, it can be used for a lot of different things. But just talk at your table for just a minute and see if you can think of something you could use this for. Charlotte's Web. No, not Charlotte's Web. This.
Are you going to have to read the TAM book?
Yeah. You think I need to go ahead and do it?
No. I'm not trying to rush you.
Okay.
No. You know more what everything will have to do.
Okay. Okay, in my room when time's up and we can't do it, I'm gonna pick on you again. Put your hand up. Okay, this is called a pyramid, and we sing, I see pyramids popping up everywhere, I hope you've got one. And so then you put your pyramid down with your friends and you come in and we start talking about what you talked about. So does anybody want to share their idea of what you might use it for? Yes.
We're doing starting life cycles in kindergarten, and I thought this would be, if I cut it right down the middle with plants.
Yes.
Start with the seed and then go bigger all the way down to the shoulders.
That's perfect.
Or any of the other parts, tadpoles, whatever else.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and wouldn't that be great where they could just get that out when you're reviewing and it's right there. Good job. Anybody else have one?
7th grade science, scientific method, and then they have to analyze their lab and put each section into the method.
I couldn't help you with that, but that sounds great to me. That's above my head. Okay.
Point that sometimes we look at these things and we think, oh, Lesa teaches kindergarten. But I'm telling you, 7th graders, 8th graders, 9th graders, when you can put something in their hands that helps them and is a tool for them, it's not too young at all.
Okay, so I'm going to move from the flip books and I'm going to do making predictions or inferring meaning, or so I will. This is our first reader that we have, and so thank you. So I hang this up in my room. They've not seen this book, and we start stretching and trying to read, and as we go I'll give them some of these little light bulbs, and I'll say, now if you think you know what this story's going to be about, I want you to hold up your light bulb and tell me why you think that. And so they'll read through, and they pretty much, they think it's a bonfire, and they're getting pretty close. They're raising their light bulbs. Then we get down here, a pot got hot, and somebody said, well, now, nobody cooks with a pot on a fire. And then they start talking, well, yes, they do, because my grandpa does that, or, then we start having conversations about that. Then we get down here, and it says pop, pop, pop. Well, they get really upset because some of them think it's the bonfire popping, and it takes them a while to think, well, it might be popcorn. Some of them don't ever figure it out until we read the book. But it is our first book. But anyway, I'll cut this apart. After we've done that, I'll cut it apart and I'll tape the strips around my room, and they'll be all mixed up. And I'll say, okay, we're going to have a read around the room, and I'll count to 3. They go to 1. They have like a minute to read it. Then they read it to the class. Then I'll say, go, and they'll move to another one. And we do it just a few times. And then they'll bring whichever one they're at back, and then we sit on the floor and they share them with the class. Well, on their own, one day one of the little boys said, we should put these in order. We should put these in order. And I said, well, we should, but can we figure it out? And so after we had read the book a few times, we were able to, line them up and put them in the right order. But this is just something I use. It's sequence, but it's also, prediction, making, some inferences from things they know about, inferring some meaning. But anyway, that one's real easy. And I didn't bring everybody one of these books because it's not great reading material. It's very short, but they really like it. But, they catch on right away when they start looking at the illustrations, which also takes me back to when we're talking about illustrations in a story. I can't remember where it is. But anyway, the setting and the illustrations, we talk about how important they are, because we would have probably not been able at kindergarten level to figure out exactly what was going on here without the illustrations. So, do you think illustrations are important? Yes. Why are they important? Well, because it helps us understand the story. So do we need to be looking at those as we're reading? Yes, we do. That kind of thing, which they're coming up with on their own, which makes my job super easy when that happens. So anyway, I really like this. I don't do it as the stories get longer, but I was trying to brainstorm about ways that, like somebody older, like teaches older kids. So maybe you could cut paragraphs apart from a chapter you're reading, or like in science, you might be able to say, well, you were talking about life cycles. Maybe you're more in depth with that, so you could take a copy of your book, cut it up, and say, go around the room, everybody read and discuss, come back, and can you put that in the right order? Can you tell me why it's in the right order? How do you know? All those questions. So anyway.
And your point about illustrations being so important, then when you have an older student that you're trying to get them to write, and you want them to write vividly, and you want a vivid description, when you can say, remember how important the pictures were for kindergartners or first graders to understand the story, your words are now what make a picture in the reader's mind, and help them to really see your, whatever it is that you're describing or writing about. So,
Yeah, thank you. Now, I've already talked about Venn diagrams over here, but we just finished Charlotte's Web. And so we did this Venn diagram. They told me what to write, and I'm not going to read it to you because you can see it. But they came up with some really good ideas, I thought, ways they were different. And this 3D, I said, what do you mean 3D? And I said, are you talking about, like at a movie? And she goes, no, but if that was a real pig and a real girl, they would be 3D. They wouldn't be flat. So that's how, So she's bringing in some math because I give them kudos if they can tie something together. So anyway, so that was a stretch, but I gave it to them. So anyway, we did this. Well, we've been doing these all year on mostly literature, but I have a friend who's here today. This is from her daughter, and she sent this picture to me. It was from your phone, right? And they were drawing these snowmen together, she and her little girl. And she drew these two circles. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you thought they were eyes? Something? Okay, some eyes of some sort. And she was like, no, that's a Venn diagram. So I know they're taking it home because she's wanting to compare and contrast their two snowmen. So even at kindergarten, even though, I'm doing a lot of the writing, but they're doing the thinking, they remember this. And so they're taking it home and doing it with other things. After we watched the movie, one of them said, can you get that Venn diagram out of that box? Because I had my stuff packed to come. We've got some more stuff we want to put on that. And I was like, no, I'm not unpacking that box. You just tell me what it is, and we'll go from there. But I mean, they're starting to think that way, like whatever we're doing. And I wanted to show you this just real quickly because we've been doing them during literature time. They're starting to want to do it in math. And they'll say, let's do a Venn diagram. And I'll say, okay. So here's one they wanted to do on triangles and squares. And so I'll leave this up for a while. We talk about how they're different and how they're alike. So they're taking it over into math because they understand it now. And they know that it's not just in reading that you can do that. Like, here's a sphere and a cube with a lot of extra paper wasted on the end. But anyway, and then there's one more thing I wanted to show you where they can organize their thoughts. And I think this comes also from just training their little brains that way. But I have this thing called the magic spot. And you can put anything in this. Like you could put a character's name, you could put some kind of scientific problem, anything in there, and they just go. They just write as much as they can or draw as much as they can. And so this one was the magic number 6. And so I don't do this with them. I just say, make 6 as many ways as you can. And so as you can see, there's a dice, there's 2 dice, a domino, and there's some hands and fingers. Some of them get real creative, like they'll have toes or whatever. And this, I can just take this and do it, and then I'll say, now go over to a partner, and then we do that partner thing again that you're so good at. And we do that, and then they go and they share. Is there anything that your partner has that you didn't have? Do you want to add to yours? Maybe they can help you. So we do this. And then we come back, and they'll tell me. Now, I put letters in this. I've not done characters or anything like that, but you could, I would think. Math figure, like numbers. How many different ways could you make, like a big number, like you teach, big numbers. So anyway, they love this. And they end up being not all different, but they do come up with some really great ways. We did one probably I don't know, maybe a week ago. Thank you. And they were coming up with a nickel and 2 pennies, or one of them said, well, what happens if we only have a dime? Well, I don't know. What does happen if you only have a dime? Let's try to figure out what happens if we only have a dime. And then all of a sudden, they're interested in subtraction. Oh, so that's what that is, you know. So then you do that. And then it just, one thing just leads to another. And they're so smart. They amaze me constantly with the things that they come up with. Because I wasn't going to say anything about the dime, because I didn't want to go there. I thought, that's too hard. You know, I was like, no. But they did, and I was so excited. And then they all got excited about dimes. That you could take a dime, and it was really 10 pennies, and then you can make other things. So, that being said, we've still got a project to do. So, on your table, you should have a big piece of construction paper and some black pens. And this book, I don't know why that book's in there. And you should have some books entitled Tim's Lost Fan. I'm going to take this down so I can draw it with you.
I'll get it for you.
Okay.
And here, you take your marker and what you're
So
doing.
if you want to talk. I'm so excited. I just want you to talk. Okay. All right. Has everybody got their paper? Okay. So, St. Patrick's. All right. So you're going to turn your paper long ways like a hot dog, and you're going to draw 2 lines. We're going to do a story map. I'll try to do it. I don't know. Let me pull this out a little bit. This is the story map that my kindergartner made. This is the story of Tim's Lost Fan. We're going to look at the book real quick. But this is the story that they're sharing in these pictures, and you can see them in teams looking so excited. They're going to talk about it. They love to talk. So anyway, so we've got, does everybody have a book, Tim's Lost Fan? Okay. All right, so at the top of the first column, we're going to put a B for beginning. And then in the middle, we're going to put an M for middle. And then we're going to put an E for the end of the story. I'm going to give you a minute to read Tim's Lost Fan, and then we're going to do a story map. It won't take long. No, you're fine. I'll find one. I don't know.
I thought you picked one up already.
Well, that one was Farm Friends or something.
Oh, was there one that wasn't
Farm
the
Pets.
right kind of
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Here we go. So the first page says Tim's fan is lost. Well, we know we've got one character. Let's draw Tim. Here's his little hair. And that's all they need to do. Just that simple. And if some of them want to write Tim, by now they should be able to stretch it. But I don't require words on here because I want everybody to be able to do it. All right. And he's lost his fan, so that's what the problem is. He can't find it, and it's not a hand. It's not this kind of fan. It's one of those little battery-operated ones, because who uses those old-timey ones anymore, right? So I'm just going to draw this little fan down here. He's lost his little fan. So we already know the main character, and we already know what the problem is. He's lost his fan. So now we've got to figure out what's he going to do. What's he going to do to find his fan? So we're going to go the middle. And we're going to put a dot, because this is going to be the first thing. So who can raise their hand and say, where did he look first? Well, he looked on the top of the bookshelf. So right here, we're going to do this. There's the bookshelf. And he looked on top. So I'm going to get real detailed, and I'm going to put an arrow. So then where did he look? Well, they'll look in their book and they'll say, he looked on the So I'm going to draw a mat with some fringe. He looked on the mat. And then, where did he look last? Well, he looked in the pit. So I'm just going to draw, there's the pit. And I'm going to put some eyeballs right here because he looked in the pit. And that doesn't look like a pit, but that's the best I can do. That's a pit. And then he finds it. Who remembers where he found it? Well, he found it. I'm going to put this pig. He found it. There's the pig. And I'm going to draw his rump right there and his curly tail. And there's the fan. He found it under the pig. And then right here, I'm just going to draw a really flat, skinny line because it was flat. It was flat. And look at his face. Was he happy or just surprised? Or disappointed? It's not a smile. So I'm just going to draw his face with his hair. I'm going to draw Tim. And then, I don't know. I'm just going to draw his little bitty mouth with his hand up here. He's like, oh, it's flat. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, so now, if Lesa's been doing this at kindergarten or first grade or second grade, and I don't know where along the way you might want to introduce outlining, but I am not above 7th graders who are like, I can't, and I'm like, oh yes you can, and I would draw beginning, middle, end, and we do a picture, and then I would take my marker and I'd go in and I'd be like, Roman numeral number 1, let's give the beginning of the story a title, or what happened there, and actually you'd think that they would make that connection, but they don't always connect the dots, even though they're really, really super smart at that, like 5th, 6th, 7th grade. So when you show them, like, you can draw pictures, you know how to do this, now just turn it into an outline with Roman numerals and letters, and you can teach outlining very easily, and you set them up to already like, oh yeah, I do know how to do that, and they don't even realize sometimes when they're presented with something bigger than Tim lost his fan, and it looks, and like it's just too much to handle, and you can take it back to something that they can relate to from a few years ago and show them, yes you can, you have the tools, you know how to do this, it's just a little bit bigger now. So that's what's it's really
And also, again, if you've got a student that struggles with writing a paragraph about Tim Sloth's fan, if he's really struggling and you just want to know if he comprehends, does it matter if it doesn't look cute? No, it doesn't matter, because that's what he's telling you. Now, if it's art class, it probably needs to look a lot better than that, but it's not. And so really all you're wanting to know is, can he do it? Can he retell the story? And I think when I taught in public education, I taught for 25 years, and one of the things that we always, and I know we don't really care what the state says, and that's okay with me because I was tired of hearing it too, but what we always scored the lowest on was summarization and inferring meaning, and so all kids will struggle with that unless they're given a tool to help. So this, to me, in my room anyway, has been really helpful, and not only do they remember Tim Sloth's fan, but they'll want to do this. They'll say, let's draw a story map and map it out, And because they love it, they love reading the story, which, you can look at their pictures and tell they like telling what they know. And they're excited about it. So anyway, that's basically how have I left anything out? I can't think of anything. I've done the flip book. Yeah, I've got some samples of their work over here. And this is just from Charlotte's Web. When I was trying to tie math to it, and this is Wilbur's Day, And so we split ours up and drew pictures of what our day looks like versus Wilbur's day, you know. And there's a lot of things in Charlotte's Web, even at kindergarten, that I didn't realize that we could do things like this with. And I'll be reading and I'll think, oh, that's coming up. I'm going to do that because it's just perfect. And like this little book right here, Farm Pets, it's part of our curriculum. It goes, we're just about on this one, and just think, I mean, we've done pigs. I don't know that spiders are in here, but we've talked about, you know, what a farm animal might feel like during their day, and it just gives them a lot of background knowledge and vocabulary development, so that when they start to have those conversations with each other and trying to tell me what they think about a story, they're able to do it. So anyway, that's it. That's all I have. So.
About how this helped you back.
Oh, they were asking me about this little fella. He was in my class last year, and he was adopted from China, and his first classroom experience was in my classroom. And I don't know if you can see it, but if you want to walk up here and look at it later, he did a story map. He could not really, I mean, he could speak English, but some of his vocabulary and his language development was, you know, a little bit different than everyone else's, but he was able to do that, and he was able to tell that story. And so it made him feel a part. He didn't feel left out. So it can just work in a lot of different ways for a lot of different students. But thank you for coming, and if you have any questions or anything, just let me know. I hope this has been useful. The box, and they were able to move the animals around and have them talk to each other and act out parts. And this little handsome fella, that's my grandson. Isn't he cute? He likes to eat like Wilbur. I just love him. We eat together. I just love him. But anyway, we made these plastic jugs, milk jugs, and made them into pigs. And we painted a green box like they take Wilbur to the fair. And they had to tell me why they thought their pig should win the medal at the fair. So they each got a turn showing their pig at the fair on the box and got to talk about it. So anyway, they liked that. Trying to persuade whose pig was going to win. And of course I didn't pick one because if I had, his would have won. So I couldn't be unfair.
I know you have your kids do presentations of all kinds, but when they are so used to retelling their story or getting up and sharing with the class, every single opportunity like that is preparing them for rhetoric. It really is. And so when it just becomes a part of the every single day classroom culture, then when they hit those older grades where they are much less comfortable with it, they don't have that problem because it's just been part of what they are so used to doing that they're like, oh, now I just do it. It's not pictures. It's off of my outline, or it's sharing the story that I wrote completely or that I paraphrased.
Or even talking about their feelings. I mean, they've learned more than just I'm happy, sad, or it's funny, or it's mean. I mean, those were their 4, words. I was like, well, can we think of other words? And I think earlier today, I was in a session and they were talking about grammar and how and I think she taught maybe through 8th grade, but she was speaking to that she knows that they have large vocabularies because she hears them talking in the hall and to each other. And they are able to express that, but when you sit them down to start writing with them, all of a sudden they can't find those words because maybe they're afraid it's not going to be grammatically correct or if it's not going to sound right. And I think the earlier we can start them speaking and talking about how they feel and using different words to describe their feelings, that when they start writing, when they get to the older grades, then it's just going to be a natural thing for them to be able to write about how they feel. But anyway, I really appreciate you coming and being patient. Oh, do you have any questions or anything?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
And Becky talked about it earlier in her talk. What is the I say, you say? You mentioned that in the beginning.
Well,
what does that look like?
Okay, well,
She does, it says I say.
I do I say, you say.
Do I say, you say.
Yeah, well, like if I was going to do this, if I said let's do I say, you say, I would just say grow, and you'd say grow, and then, like that. And I do that with, we have sight words with our curriculum, I think, and then we do cheers, and like a cheerleader, like give me an L, whatever, and we spell the word. And then at the end we do really silly cheers that probably nobody here wants. Thank you.
They were so fun. My daughter did them all year long.
Well, okay. Well, here's okay. So here's the Texas Yeehaw. Yeehaw! And then there's a firecracker. Oh, click, 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 click. Woo! And then I'm trying to think. Then there's oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then there's help me. I can't think of all of them. I'm just anyway. That's
These are the cheers that they encourage each other with?
yeah, yeah, and then they just love it. Oh, there's truck driver cheer. Honk, honk. Good job, good buddy. Honk, honk. I just can't. And you can make them up. Some of the little girls will go, ooh la la, ooh la la. It's really good. So they're just.
Texas, my daughter had to take a picture of this snow on a big Texas sign. Said, I have to give Miss Smith the yeehaw. And she said,
Yeah.
yeehaw!
Yeah. It was awesome. Yeah. But anyway, thank you. And if you have any questions or want to come look at some of this afterwards, you're welcome to do that. But I appreciate you coming and being good listeners. Have a good evening.